What's up, YouTube? Today's video, I'm gonna be bringing you Blade Vortex, and this is Blade Vortex, and I'm leveling here with Blade Vortex, and it's pretty fast. And I was really surprised how fast Blade Vortex is. You can see I even have some unspec gem sockets or jewel sockets, and that's because my friend took back my forbidden jewel that I was borrowing. But leveling is super fast. Blade Vortex is a skill that you pretty much just cast and you run around, everything dies. And I would say it probably rivals Hollow Palm speed, and it's pretty crazy, especially if you set it up correctly. And the leveling gear is incredibly cheap. It's just replica Thessalio sign, some wall with flat damage or flat cold damage for power charge, and you get the idea. It's a super fun skill to play. Well, I didn't kill all the mobs there, but really fun, really visually stunning, and I do think that Blade Vortex has a lot of potential. So in today's video, I'm going to go over why you should play Blade Vortex and if Blade Vortex could potentially be one of the best skills in the game. Now, as you can see here, there's a lot of different microtransactions for this. There's Transcendence Blade Vortex. And just so happens today that they all seem to be on sale. It's kind of a coincidence, right? But I'll probably buy the Transcendence Blade Vortex skin because it looks the best. But basically, we're going to go over why this might be the best clear skill, the different ways to play it, and how I will build it. Because my character is still kind of young right now. I think he's 87. Oh, I have like 5 passive points, but you can actually play this build for pretty cheap early on, and I will try to make a more budget guide for this because I do think that Blade Vortex is playable at a lower budget, especially with how power charges work in Occultist. So first off, a lot of people might be wondering why Blade Vortex? Why am I not playing Venom Gyre anymore? And the fact of the matter is, GGG honestly ruined Venom Gyre. I know last league they kind of messed up Whirling Blades with name locking, and this league they added in Echoist. And the way Echoist works is just, it's a terrible, terrible experience. You use Inspired Learning or Headhunter when it gets buffed. Or when it gets buffed, of course. But basically, whenever you use Whirling Blades, you go backwards. Or you use Flame Dash, you go backwards. So you literally cannot control your character. And Venom Jar is kind of annoying in Crimson Temple because it can't really clear around the edges as well. And Blade Vortex is just a super, super good skill. With how big the AoE is, you can literally just run down the corridors of Crimson Temple and instantly clear everything. And it will chain pretty far, especially with how Herald of Ice works. Now, this build can also utilize the Soul Gain Prevention Sextant if you wanted to cheese content. What this means is that you can pretty much just keep spamming your Vault Blade Vortexes, and the Vault Blade Vortex actually do a significant chunk of damage, especially if it's stacked up. Now, lastly, I'll probably be playing this with an Aura Bot sometimes, and this allows me to potentially run Magic Find. And Blade Vortex is one of the premier skills to use with an Aura Bot, primarily because it's a Fizz skill. So it scales really well with auras like Hatred, Zealotry, and all that sorts. So that allows me to potentially drop some gear like rings and boots and run Gold Worm and Magic Find gear while still having the defenses and damage. And there is actually someone who was running 6-man carries in 100% Delhi Crimson Temple with Magic Find gear. And I thought that was pretty cool. And maybe I could potentially do some of that, like XP Leech groups. So next up, you might be wondering, what are the different types of Blade Vortexes out there? And the different types of Blade Vortex, there's 2 main types that I see on PoE Ninja. And it's Cold Blade Vortex, which relies on Herald of Ice to clear everything. And it does have a higher single target damage potential. And that's mainly because the Hatred aura is just that strong. So if we go look here, in Arch Nemesis League, you can see here, if we sort by Blade Vortex damage, most of the top builds are all Cold Blade Vortex. There are some fire ones up here, and they do use a bow or something. But you can see here, this build has 0 defenses. And there are actually a lot of different ways of building it. Now, this is another build. This is Cold Blade Vortex. But basically, the main thing with Fire Blade Vortex is that it requires Herald of Ash and Lone Messenger for clear. And the main thing about Lone Messenger is that you can't run any defensive auras or any other aura at all. So it ends up, I think, being a little bit worse. And I do like the looks of Herald of Ice a lot. Some people say that you could potentially use Cold to Fire and use both, but we'll see about that. But now, why am I going to choose Cold Blade Vortex? Well, primarily because I think Blast Freeze is pretty crazy. If anyone's ever played like Aura Stacker before, or any build that can freeze and have any problems with defenses, after they put in Blast Freeze, it's pretty much a night and day difference. Everything gets frozen around them. They don't need to worry about dying, and it's just an incredible, incredible quality of life experience. And also, the higher single target damage should help you out while doing simulacrums, and Cold Blade Vortex is actually surprisingly pretty good in simulacrums. I saw some videos of people doing it in Sentinel League with 7 rewards. And if you can get 7 rewards, that means your build has really good coverage and it has really good single target. And Hatred is just the better aura than Anger. Hatred allows you to scale your damage a lot better. Hatred also has some of the best Watcher's Eye mods, which includes Hatred Crit, Hatred Cold Pen, and Hatred Cold Damage. So it's an incredibly strong aura, and much better than just running Herald of Ash. And lastly, a lot of the Assassin Blade Vortex people are all fire, so that means that I would have to play an Assassin, and I do think that Cultist is a lot stronger. You get a lot more AoE from the power charges, and you get the +1 power charge, and it's just a very good ascendancy. And later on, I potentially wanted to try and cast on crit again and play Ice Nova. And play Occultist allows for easy swap over, while Assassin is kind of a little bit of a weird ascendancy for cast on crit Ice Nova, or even cast on crit Forbidden Right. Now, next up, a lot of people might be wondering what exactly are the different weapons to use, and that's actually a pretty good point of contention. And this is actually one of the cooler parts of the build, is that there's just so many different choices. Now, one choice is, and I think that this is probably one of the better choices, is to use 2 Mirror Warding Scepters with +2 physical skill gems and Hatred Aura effect. So pretty much people just roll these scepters. You can probably do this with recombining nowadays. And this scepter gives a lot of damage, and it kind of almost beats out the Squire. I think it's incredibly close, but they're kind of cool. But the main thing about this compared to the 11 Link Wand and Squire combo is you lose a lot of your block with Squire. Squire does give you around almost 30% chance to block, and having a Squire also means that you can shield charge, which is a huge steal. So that's why I really prefer the 11 Link Wand and Squire combo. So you can see here, this is a wand, this is an area of effect, critical strikes, critical damage, cold penetration, Socrates skills deal 40% more spell damage. And for the last link, they actually craft on +2 level Socrates support gems, which is pretty much where they put in the empower. So this is pretty much +2 level to skill gems. So for more budget option, you can run 2 void batteries. That's what my character is currently rocking right now. You can just run 2 regular void batteries with area of effect enchant, and these are very cheap. I think I bought them for 40 chaos or 50 chaos. And lastly, there's another option, which is bow with double damage. And the reason you want to use a bow is because you can stack explode to super high levels. So this is 35% chance to explode. This is 25% chance to explode. So with these two, you already have 60% chance to explode. So that's why you would use a blow bow. Another thing that's good on the mod for Synthesize Implicit is spells have 18% chance to deal double damage. And this is pretty much crafted with a woe essence and have a very similar crafting method to making the explosive arrow bow. And for the quiver, you pretty much just get one of these Asphyxia's Wrath, which lets you gain a lot of your fizz, extra cold, extra fire, and extra lightning damage. So super strong if you want to get the guaranteed explode. So as you can see, there's a lot of different options, a lot of different budget options, and a lot of options that offer you different defenses and different clear potential. Now, you might be wondering, how exactly do you level up a character? Say you wanted to follow along me on this Blade Vortex journey. Well, the leveling experience is pretty simple. It is pretty much the same concept as you saw from the level 24 Uber Elder video, which is you utilize the fact that low-level uniques can give you a lot of flat added cold damage, which scales really well with Blade Vortex. Blade Vortex actually has a decent spell effectiveness now of... Wait, it's only 30%. Well, Vault Blade Vortex has a much higher damage effectiveness, so it's only 30%. That's not actually very good. But basically, you stack a lot of flat added cold. You can get 20 to 35 flat right there, and then since your enemies will always be chilled, you can have 60 to 80 cold damage extra. And this is only a level 20 ring, which is insane. And on the tree, we'll be grabbing a lot of power charges. So here, you can see here that there's this mod 10 to 20 cold damage to spells per power charge. We do dual wield these wands. And we're also going to be rushing all of the power charge, life, and aura reservation nodes. So you can see here, the tree. My tree is not great at all. It pretty much came out here, went over here, got the life, grabbed the power charges here, got some herald, aura efficiency nodes, went over here, got the reservation efficiency, life nodes, got the other power charge, and I am running inspired learning over here. And then we went over here this way, fill out the area of effect if you need it, and some more aura reservation nodes, and then some more life nodes. So pretty easy tree, pretty topside heavy, and you do need to worry about your decks. So You can also use a +2 Tabula or Skin of the Lords. They should be relatively cheap with the right colors, and the plus level of skill gems should carry your damage. Now, lastly, since we are trying to be Cold Blade Vortex, we want to run these gloves, Hrim Sorrow or Hrim Burn. And what this does is that it converts all of your fizz to cold. So you have 40% of fizz converted to cold with the cold mastery, and then you have 50% converted on these gloves. Now you can buy these with elemental weakness. I think they were relatively cheap when I bought them. So I think they were like 1x or 40 chaos or so. So that will take care of all of the cold conversion you need. So give this lovely experience a try. I'll upload this POB. It's very, very basic right now because this is pretty much a bare bones character that I bought some random gear for. And something that's super cool happened yesterday. I closed my eyes and exalted this chest and hit 30% spell suppression, T2 spell suppression roll. So I bought this base for 8 exalts. I blocked off int, and then I YOLO exalted a suffix of 30% suppress. I'm running a goal with +1 max power charges right now. Badge of the Brotherhood with some random anoint. And I just bought these 2 really cheap rings, Circle of Guilt, Circle of Fear, for like pretty much, I don't even know, like 10, 20 chaos each. These void batteries. These boots I actually paid a lot. I think these are 25x. You definitely need Tailwind Elusive boots, especially if you're going to use Badge of the Brotherhood. And of course, we have the Mage Blood, the huge quality of life belt, and then this random Burn. And I do have this large cluster jewel of Blast Freeze, Break of the Snow, and Doriani's Lesson. So the build is still in a state of flux. I still have a bunch of points to spend, so we'll figure out the best way of doing it. But just wanted to let everyone know that Blade Vortex is amazing to level with and has huge potential as it already clears Crimson Temple better than my Venom Jar character. Now, overall, anytime you play Blade Vortex, it seems like the biggest problem is you want to solve defenses of the build. And you can see here, this is going to be Blade Vortex, and this is the Arch Nemesis mob with 4 mods on it. And you want to figure out how can you stop the Arch Nemesis mob from scoring and dunking on your face. Now, I do think that one of the best ways to do this is to try to get 90% res with melding and stacking Physis Ellie on gear. So since this build is kind of an aura bot or aura stacker in a sense that you get all of the aura reservation nodes, I do think that you can potentially get 90% res and you could cover the melding cost of a bismuth flask, and that will allow you to run a purity, and having 90 res and Physis Ellie is probably the best source of defenses possible. And if we do run a Squire later on, that does give us a lot of block. And the elusive effect, if we do decide to use Badge of the Brotherhood, is an extra layer of chance to avoid all damage. And the nice part about Blade Vortex is it scales very, very well into the end game, and there's a lot of different build decisions to make. Unlike certain skills that are pretty solved or certain builds, Blade Vortex has a lot of different variants, has a lot of different options to build, and it'll be fun to see what exactly ends up being the best farming method for the build. And if you don't like Blade Vortex, just know that this tree is very, very similar to Cast on Crit Forbidden Right or Ice Nova if the build does not work out, and everyone knows they love a good cock. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods than me, and see you next time. Bye!